Well, hello. I am Laura Krutzinger-Perry. I am the pastor here at the United Churches, and I just want to welcome you to this space and to this time today. Welcome to our annual Holy Week concert. Just really gratitude, I guess is the best word, to the I have to write, I always get this wrong every time. The American Guild of Organists and the Olympia chapter for sponsoring this concert. We are so grateful for this event. How many of you have been to this concert before? Raise your hand so you know how fabulous this is. And so just want to say thank you to all of our organists that are here with us today, and for Vicki, who is assisting. I want to let you know that the concert is being recorded and will be available later for viewing and for sharing on the United Church's YouTube page. And then after the concert, you're also invited to stay for some refreshments and just time of community and fellowshipping and gratitude for the time to get to be together today. And so again, thank you. If there's anything you need, look for us, me, or one of our church members out in the foyer to assist you with anything. If you need hearing assist, we have some headphones in the back, or we have a hearing loop that you might be able to hook into so that you can fully enjoy the concert together. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Pastor Laura, and thanks for joining us today. Martin Luther wrote the German hymn, Vater unser in Himmelreich, in 1538. So this is a very old hymn tune, and it was later put to music by different composers, including Orlando di Lasso, Michael Praetorius, Dietrich Buxtehude, and Johann Sebastian Bach. In 1845, Mendelssohn set this tune to variations, and those variations are the beginning of his sixth sonata, and I'll be playing those for you now. Thank you. So that was the Lord's Prayer. Last year, about this time, Dan's going to get set up, I think, while I talk a little bit. We were in the process of getting a new organ console, and here it is. It's a beauty, and it has a wind-up bench. Yesterday morning, in the middle of church, I didn't have time to check the bench before church because we were practicing a choir anthem, and I got on the bench to play a hymn, and my feet didn't reach the pedals because Dan had been practicing Saturday night. So we've been having a lot of fun with the new instrument. It's new to us, but it's not new. So any of you who have maybe purchased a new car or a new computer have found that sometimes there are glitches. And we've had a fair share of glitches. One is that some of the couplers aren't working today, which is why Vicki generously was reaching over to push a few buttons for me. Dan is all set up so he doesn't have to do that. But we are able to use this instrument thanks to all of your generosity. We made over $1,500 last year at this concert that helped raise the money. So thanks again.
Hello, as April mentioned, my name is Dan Colgan. I have the extreme pleasure of being the co-dean with April of the Olympia chapter of the American Guild of Organists. And I'd just like to reiterate again our extreme thanks to Pastor Laura and April and all of the United Church's volunteers and ushers and for allowing us to have these recitals here. It is deeply important to us, and I think our audience has sort of been growing every year, so that's just been wonderful to see. Just a couple quick notes about François Couperin, which you are about to hear next. These are 4 fairly short movements from his Mass of the Parishes. And François Couperin was what was happening in France while Bach was writing music in Germany. So we have actually a couple letters, so they knew that each other existed and there was a shared mutual respect there. But unfortunately, all of Couperin's music, other than this Mass, the Mass of the Parishes and the Mass of the Convents, all of it has been lost. So we only have these 2 pretty sizable works, but both very, very early. So I hope you enjoy.
Hopefully I'm a little better organized now. Brahms, Johannes Brahms, did not write very much music for the organ, but in the final summer of his life, he wrote the 11 chorale preludes, Opus 122. I'm only playing 3 of them. A chorale prelude, by the way, is any piece of music that is based on an existing hymn tune. The word chorale, in that sense, just being a fancy word for hymn. Biographers agree that Brahms wrote this collection of chorale preludes in memory of his dearest and most faithful friend, Clara Schumann, who, as most of you probably know, was the wife of Robert Schumann, and herself an amazing pianist and composer in her own right. At the same time, however, these preludes are a revealing document of Brahms' thoughts on his own life and its impending end. He was, quite elderly at the time. As a matter of fact, several of the preludes are based on hymns that deal with last things. They are, said one biographer, a retrospect and an epilogue, a salutation to youth and its ideals, and a farewell to this world, which is, after all, so fair, end quote. As somber as some of them are, they yet have an autumnal warmth that is all Brahms' own. The first one I'm playing today is based on a fairly well-known communion hymn, Soul, Adorn Yourself with Gladness, which is number 514 in the pew hymnal here at the United Churches, if you want to look it up, number 514. The next one, the text Brahms was thinking of, has been translated as follows. Blessed are you who live in faith unswerving, you who die the grace of God deserving. By the way, I have to say, I thought that was a tenet of Christianity, that we were all undeserving of God's grace. But anyway, you who die the grace of God deserving, eventually through heaven's portals, you'll escape the chains that bound you as mortals. And then the final Brahms piece that I'm playing is a setting of a much more familiar tune commonly known as the Passion Chorale, because Bach used it multiple times in his famous St. Matthew Passion. In most contemporary hymnals, it is set to the text, O Sacred Head Now Wounded, which is number 221 in your hymnal. Anyway, but Brahms had a different text in mind, one that Bach also used, and here's how it reads in translation. My heart is ever yearning for blessed death's release, from ills that here surround me and woes that never cease. This cruel world to banish would be a blessed boon. I sigh for joys eternal. O Jesus, Lord, come soon. Now, nowadays, expressing a desire for death so plainly and openly as that might be regarded as gauche or unduly morbid or both, but I think most of us have probably had similar thoughts, at least occasionally, at some point in our lives. Brahms certainly captures the essence of this kind of feeling in his music, which is appropriate both to the text he had in mind and to the text of O Sacred Head Now Wounded, which is, of course, especially appropriate to Holy Week in the current liturgical calendar. All right, thanks.
As sub-dean of the chapter, it's a particular pleasure, again, to welcome you here for our annual recital. As sub-dean, I'm in charge of programs, so I wanted to draw your attention to the next program and hope some of you will join us. You don't need to be an organist, and you don't need to be a member of this chapter. We go on what are called organ crawls. That sounds kind of creepy, but it's really not. And we're going to 3 churches, and I hope you'll join us. We're going to start out at a Good Shepherd Lutheran Church, which has a wonderful Fritz Richards tracker, an Opus 3, a lovely instrument, at our first stop. Our second stop is the newest organ in this area, which is at St. Benedict's Episcopal Church. They just installed in January a Schlicker organ, so we'll get to go check it out. And then for those of you who haven't been to the monastery over at St. Martin's, in their chapel they have a beautiful Swiss tracker organ from the 1970s, and we'll have a chance to be welcomed by one of the monks and to hear that organ as well. That organ crawl is on June 1st. You see that my telephone number is there, because if you have any questions or you'd like to tag along or just try it, that's a great thing. We usually get 20 or 25 people, and like I said, you don't have to be an organist. Now, I wasn't going to say anything, but because we're doing so much Mendelssohn today, I'm reading a wonderful book that you might want to get from the library called Bach's Feet. And it talks about German-speaking areas of Europe and how pedals, because we take them so for granted, are a distinctly German thing. And they were transmitted after the death of Bach through another German who wrote some music for England. And England at the time did not have organs with pedals. And this guy named Felix Mendelssohn wrote these 6 sonatas for organ. So it's David Yearsley is the composer, the author of the book, Bach's Feet. I encourage you to read it. It's a fun read.
Hello, I'm Jordan Nylander, and I am playing a toccata today that I wrote when I was in Hawaii, and I was just accepted a position in Vancouver, Washington. And so it's filled with a lot of excitement and energy. This is Organ Toccata in F. The bench works really well, and it's great to be playing with such awesome musicians, Dan, April, Will, and Dennis. So thank you.
We are the co-deans of the Olympia chapter, so we'd just like to invite all the performers to come back for one last round of applause. Come back up, Jordan. Thank you all for coming. Make sure you have cookies. The choir worked really hard on those. So come on up.
Thank you all again.